This is the full guide on how to improve your squat. Now first and foremost, we're going to start off at ground zero. This is for the people that don't know how to squat, or when they've tried to squat, their technique is completely off. Now if you find that when you squat you look like this part of the video is for you. Now if you're more intermediate or advanced, you can just skip to this timestamp and have some info that's more pertinent to your situation. The first exercise we've got sit to stands. Now it is quite simple as sitting down and standing back up. Most people should be able to do this. If this isn't something that you can achieve yet, there's probably more pressing things to take care of. Now for this, all I need you to do is sit down on the bench and stand back up. Now I don't want you to take all your weight off. I want you to keep that tension on, just like you're about to leave the chair. Have a brief touch and then come back up. Now keep that movement pattern. That is essentially a squat. The next one, we're going to be moving some weight, and it is just a sit down, stand back up, but we've got the weight out in front of us. What this does is it allows us to kind of engage more. We're going to be moving something heavier than just ourselves. It keeps us moving in the correct movement pattern. It allows us not only to break at the knees, but also to break at the hips, which is something that's really important. People often try and just jam their knees forward when they squat, but it is both, and equally you move back at the hips and you move forward at the knees, and that's what allows you to get into position. So when you do this exercise, it just drills that habit into you. Now finally, we've got the kettlebell squats. With these, I like to get a kettlebell that's quite small. It's not about the weight at this point. All you need to do is just think about picking it up and putting it back down again. When you pick it up and put it back down, you should be getting a full range of motion in a way that feels natural. Often I find when people get the bar in their back, they panic and they start moving in directions that are completely unnatural and that they've never moved in before. Now for the people that lack the ankle mobility to maybe even do sit downs and stand ups, or just lack ankle mobility in general, I often see people recommend all these fancy drills for people to do, and yeah, they do work and they're probably even more effective than what I'm going to recommend. However, I think something that's nearly as effective and also more useful is just classic calf raises. It can be done in any kind of position. I've got some seated leg press calf raises here, but you could do them standing or in any other machine. What that does is it just stretches out and lets you kind of learn some ankle mobility and adapt towards that. But also it allows you to train a much neglected muscle, the calves. I think most people end up neglecting their calves, and it's just a good way of, one, working on your ankle mobility, and two, actually getting some type of benefit out of it that isn't just improved mobility. It can be hard to keep focus in mind when all your kind of benefit is, oh, if I do this I'll be able to squat. If you do this you'll be able to squat, but you'll also get some big calves. First and foremost, you want to approach the bar and grab it about shoulder width apart, because we don't want to pull it onto your neck because that's too high. We want to just wedge it across the upper back and make sure we're nice and tight. Step up out of the rack, non-dominant leg back, and shift with the dominant leg, and then we line up with the non-dominant leg. Now the reason I say this is because we want this to be a 3-step protocol. I don't want you dancing around in the rack, wasting time, wasting energy, trying to straighten your feet for the next 5 minutes. All it's going to do is sap your concentration and sap your ability to actually do the weight. Now breathing. You don't want to just be breathing willy-nilly all over the place. What it's going to do, as you can see, it's going to throw off your position. We also don't want to just let yourself go loose. Breathe and brace like you're going to get punched in the stomach full force. We tighten up the whole body, and on the way down we're holding our breath, only expelling air as we come up. Remember to break at the hips and the knees at the same time, not just jamming the knees forward. And we want to think about pushing them out to the sides as we come down. It's going to just let us get that a little bit deeper. As simple as that, we've got a squat. progressive overload. Now, you've probably heard this term chucked around a lot. What it is basically just trying to get stronger over time, be that by adding reps or by adding weight. Now, for your squat, if you've just been sitting on the same weight over and over, just running it again and again, you'll need some sort of strategy of progression. Now, that could be something simple like just doing 3 sets of 5 every week and just try and add 2.5 kilos or 5 pounds every single week. Now, a lot of people probably will say, well, you know, I do progressively overloaded. You know, I'm on starting strength. I'm trying to add a couple of kilos every time I'm in the gym. And that takes me to the next point. Progressively overloading intelligently. They maybe do squats once a week for 3 sets of 5 and they try and just add 2.5 kilos every week. Now, that'll work to begin with, but if you get stuck, you're going to be stuck probably forever on that, just trying to eke out gains from that. What you'll need is novelty. Now, if you've been stuck training squats once a week for 3 sets of 5, all you need to do is change up the sets and reps. You might want to drop the weight slightly and do a rep range like this. And on that last set, you can see there's a plus sign. Now what it is you just try and hit the numbers for the first 2 sets, but on that last set, you do as many as you can. Now if you get over 6, you can move up weight. If you can't get over 6, you just stay where you are. This is a good way of just progressing because you're not only trying to progress via jumps in weight, you can also progress via jumps in rep count. And as well, you can fluctuate your volume based on how many more reps you get on that final set. Next thing to identify is your build. More often than not, you're going to favour one of 2 builds. You might end up squatting with a build like this, or if your build is like this, you're going to be a lot more hip dominant. What we're defining here, is your squat going to be more quad dominant, or is it going to be more glutes and lower back? Now what that's based on is how long your legs are. If you've got particularly long legs to your torso ratio, you're going to squat way further back at the hips. It's going to train the glutes and the lower back more. Now, if you squat more like this, and you're more upright when you squat because you've got shorter legs, advice for either one of these builds, whatever camp you fall into, is to take a time in which you train the opposite muscle. So if you're a low bar squatter and you've been stuck and your low bar squat's not going anywhere, it's because every time you've been in the gym, you've been training your glutes and your lower back by squatting. Your quads are your kind of weaker factor there. So if you take dedicated time to build up your quads through exercises such as this, or this, you will then drive further hypertrophy into your quads. It will allow you to build bigger legs, and it means that they'll be able to contribute a little bit more to your hip dominant squat. And if you're a quad dominant lifter, you can do variations such as this. What I'm doing here is the SSB Good Morning. I'm stretching at my hamstrings and I'm training my glutes and my lower back. And what this does is it just helps build up those areas. It means that when I go back to high bar squatting, I can then get a little bit more assistance from my glutes and my lower back. It just makes my posterior chain that bit stronger, and it will help me when I go back to my regular lifting. You can also employ other movements such as RDLs, or what I'm displaying here, dumbbell RDLs. Once again, it's working the same thing. It's strengthening the lower back. You can also strengthen your whole core and your ability to breathe and brace, which will help your squat. I myself am taking up time as a long-legged lifter to train quads primarily. I've switched to a high bar stance. I try and keep really upright, and I do really high reps. So it means when it goes back to low bar strength training in the winter time, I'm going to be way better set to take my squat even further than what it went last year. And it's useful to take these times to do that, to round out your weaknesses. For advanced people, it's good to add some novelty to your routine by increasing the sets and reps. If you're a guy and you maybe have never went beyond 5 reps and going beyond 5 reps scares you, it's probably your sign to do something like a 5 sets of 10 protocol on a lighter weight. Now the opposite can also be said. You know, this is kind of geared from powerlifters in the first example, but even like bodybuilders, for instance, a lot of bodybuilders go, I'll only ever train, 5 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12, 4 sets of 15, but they can also benefit from doing dedicated times of strength training. It's good to be multidisciplinary because you get to periodise your training. It's good to focus your training into blocks of hypertrophy. We're really trying to get some high reps, good conditioning, good ability to breathe, pack on muscle, but it's also good to get some neurological adaptations through strength training. If you have been in a long time of doing strength training, the thing that can get you out of it, that long kind of plateau where you've stayed the same, is by changing and doing some bodybuilding style training. Now the opposite can also be said if you're still struggling to put on muscle and you've only ever been doing bodybuilding training. Taking a dedicated time to do strength training, trying to get stronger, dropping the reps a little bit, those neurological adaptations, when you go back to doing your regular training, you'll probably be able to be stronger and also do some of that high rep stuff. So it's good to balance your training out. That's what periodization is. That's a lot of people complicate it. Is what you need to do is introduce novelty to your routine, and that's what's going to drive your progress.